I've always had the sense that there's something missing in the way we talk about happiness. We're given productivity hacks, motivation tricks, endless advice on how to optimize our lives, yet so much of the time, life still feels heavy. Some moments feel effortless and absorbing, while others feel like we're dragging ourselves through mud. When I first encountered Flow by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, it felt like someone was finally pointing at that invisible difference and saying, "This is what you've been sensing all along." This book isn't about working harder or chasing pleasure. It's about understanding the psychology of happiness, the nature of consciousness, and those rare moments of deep focus and optimal experience when everything just clicks. When I first picked up Flow, I'll admit I was skeptical. I expected something academic, dense language, abstract theories, and ideas that were interesting but difficult to apply to real life. What surprised me was how practical and deeply human the book turned out to be. Csikszentmihalyi isn't trying to impress you with complexity. He's trying to answer one of the most fundamental questions we quietly carry with us every day: what actually makes life worth living? Not in some distant philosophical sense, but in the texture of ordinary moments. He's not focused on pleasure, comfort, or external success. He's focused on experience itself, on how we feel while we're living our lives. What really challenged me was his claim that happiness isn't something that happens to us. It's something we actively construct by shaping the contents of our consciousness. That idea alone reframed how I thought about work, leisure, and even rest. Through decades of research, Csikszentmihalyi found that the moments people describe as the most meaningful aren't when they're being entertained or relaxed. They're when they're fully absorbed in something challenging, something that stretches their skills just beyond their comfort zone. In those moments, self-consciousness fades, time distorts, and attention becomes so focused that everything else falls away. This is what he calls the flow state. As I kept reading, I realized how much this contradicted the way we're taught to pursue happiness. We assume comfort is the goal. We minimize effort. We treat work as something to escape from. But Csikszentmihalyi's research shows something counterintuitive. People often report their lowest levels of happiness during passive activities like watching television, and their highest levels during work, not despite the effort, but because of it. That insight alone shifted how I looked at my own days. It made me question how often I confuse ease with fulfillment. One of the parts I loved most was how clearly he breaks down the anatomy of flow. It isn't random or mystical. Flow emerges when there's a balance between challenge and skill. If a task is too easy, boredom sets in. If it's too difficult, anxiety takes over. But when challenge and ability are aligned, something remarkable happens. Goals become clear. Feedback is immediate. Concentration deepens. And gradually, your sense of self dissolves into the activity itself. You're no longer worrying about how you look, what others think, or what comes next. You're simply there, fully engaged. What struck me personally was how universal this experience is. Csikszentmihalyi shows that flow appears across cultures, professions, and skill levels. A surgeon performing a complex operation, a rock climber navigating a difficult route, a musician lost in improvisation, a writer absorbed in a story, they're all accessing the same psychological state. Different activities, same structure of experience. It's a reminder that peak performance and deep fulfillment don't come from the activity itself, but from how completely we give ourselves to it. The book also changed how I think about consciousness. Csikszentmihalyi argues that the quality of our lives depends on the quality of our experiences, and the quality of our experiences depends on how we direct our attention. That idea stayed with me. It means that happiness isn't about changing our circumstances as much as it's about learning how to engage with them. Flow isn't reserved for artists, athletes, or people with extraordinary talents. It's available to anyone willing to approach their work, relationships, and even mundane tasks with intention. What I found empowering was his emphasis on intrinsic motivation. Flow doesn't arise from rewards, praise, or external pressure. It comes from doing something for its own sake, from caring deeply about the process, not just the outcome. That perspective made me rethink how often I outsource motivation to goals, deadlines, or validation, instead of cultivating genuine engagement with what I'm doing right now. So I often ask myself, what would change if I took flow seriously? I think I'd stop waiting for happiness to arrive someday and start creating the conditions for it daily. I'd seek challenges that stretch me instead of comfort that dulls me. I design my work around clear goals and immediate feedback. I'd pay attention to when I enter flow and deliberately make space for more of those moments. I'd stop equating leisure with happiness and start seeing effort as a path to fulfillment. And maybe most importantly, I'd measure my days differently. Not by how much I achieved or accumulated, but by how present I was. How deeply I engaged. How often I lost myself in meaningful work. That's the real gift of this book. Flow doesn't promise an easy life. It offers something better, a framework for turning ordinary moments into optimal experience, using whatever materials your life already gives you. Like and subscribe to Well Read Club for more book breakdowns and mindset insights that actually matter.